Thank you. Please be seated. Council's in session. Please stay standing for the national anthem. Now, please be seated. This meeting of Ajax Council is being held in a hybrid meeting format with virtual and in-person participation by members of the public, staff, and council. This meeting is also being live streamed and may be viewed online at ajax.ca/live. A friendly reminder to all participants, please use your microphone at all times for the benefit of those participating in council chambers or joining remotely. Open with the land acknowledgement. I want to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is situated within the traditional treaty territories of the Mississaugas, more specifically the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, signatories of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous peoples. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action and acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. Does any member of council have any disclosure of pecuniary interest on matters on today's agenda? Hearing, seeing none. We do have a request for an additional delegation. Can I please get a motion to suspend the rules to allow additional delegation? Moved by Councillor Lee, second by Councillor Crawford. Any questions on this? Well, it's Mr. Glass, and it's going to be added as item number 6.3 in the agenda after the other delegation and presentation. Please open the vote. And that carries. We have something new today. So let me pull up a couple of items here. Thank you. So today we have a hearing of complaint under Section 20 of the Development Charge Act of 1997. I'll just open with a couple of comments. First, pursuant to Section 20 of the Development Charges Act 1997, Ajax Council is required to hold hearings with respect to certain complaints involving the calculation of development charges and provide complainants with an opportunity to make representations. Today's hearing is of a development charge complaint dated July 29, 2025 by John W. Montgomery, agent for McCabco Holdings, Inc., regarding the property at 620 Taunton Road East. Council's role will be to give the complainant and the town an opportunity to make representations within a 20-minute time frame for each party. After hearing the evidence and submissions from each party, council members may ask questions to clarify any of the material presented. Following the submissions and questions, council may deliberate their decisions in either dismiss the complaint or rectify any incorrect determination of error that was subject of the complaint. Following the decision, the town will publish the decision in writing on the town's public website within 1 week and provide it to all parties. The complainant or the complaint will have the opportunity to appeal the decision of council as per Section 22 of the Development Charges Act 1997. Any questions? Okay. First, we will hear from the complainant submission, Mr. Montgomery, agent for McCabco Holdings, please. Please come forward, sir. You'll have 20 minutes.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of council. I will be brief this afternoon. The matter is fairly discreet. I'm here, as Worship said, on behalf of Peter Landry and McCabco Holdings to address the matter of development charges levied in respect to the property at 620 Taunton Road East. Mr. Landry and his family have a long history in the town of Ajax and on the property in particular in question, dating back some 50+ years. That being said, the facts relating to this discrete issue are fairly narrow, and they are for the most part set out in the staff report, which you've all seen. So I won't get into a great deal of history. I'll give you a little bit of background as to what led to this complaint. First of all, there was a single-family dwelling on the property at 620 Taunton Road East. The house was quite old, and by late 2020, it was in a derelict condition. Mr. Landry has comments, of course, about how the property got that way, but those are really neither here nor there with respect to the issues that we are here to talk about concerning development charges. The fact is, though, that by late 2020, the property was in very poor condition and subject to squatters and abuse by local folks, I suppose, and it constituted a hazard, and Mr. Landry was very concerned about that. And so in early 2021, he began the process of clearing trees and removing considerable garbage that had been deposited by vagrants, squatters, and so forth. In April 2021, Mr. Landry began demolition of the old house. The house needed to come down, and he brought in an experienced work crew to begin and complete the demolition in a careful and workmanlike manner. An inspector on behalf of the town of Ajax attended, as I understand, and advised Mr. Landry that he required a demolition permit in order to complete the demolition. Mr. Landry then stopped work and went to the town office as directed by the inspector in order to submit an application, understand what was necessary, submit an application, and obtain a demolition permit. Of course, as of April 2021, we all know that we were in the midst of the pandemic and the town office was closed and Mr. Landry could not enter. And so as a result, he was unable to do what he had intended on that day. And he telephoned the town offices and left a number of messages, as I understand it, but did not hear back in a timely manner. And this led to him completing the demolition. He had begun the demolition and was of the opinion that leaving the property in mid-demolition stage was a great hazard, and so he continued the demolition and completed it. There is no dispute that Mr. Landry did not obtain a demolition permit from the town. There's also no suggestion that the demolition was completed in an improper, unsafe, or otherwise incorrect manner. Now, the purpose of development charges, as we all know, is to ensure that the cost of growth and development and the related burden on the town is shared by those wishing to undertake development that adds to that burden. We also know that where a development replaces an already existing dwelling with one that does not add to or increase the cost, associated with services and so forth, an exemption or credit is available under the Development Charges Bylaw and the Development Charges Act. That, of course, makes sense. And in my submission, that is exactly what is happening in this matter. As the staff report indicates, Mr. Landry is in the process of obtaining a building permit for the installation of two portable buildings on the site, which he intends to use for a combined residential and business purpose. He's gone through the process of obtaining or submitting all the required drawings and calculations and so forth for the building permit, including satisfying the Region of Durham with respect to the septic system, the septic equipment on the site, which served the previous house. He's had to do a lot of studies to satisfy particularly the Region of Durham with respect to this, and he's completed all of this. And so now he's faced with development charges as a condition of having the building permit issued. And as I've said, and I don't think it's in dispute here, that what is being placed on the property does not add to the square footage or the number of dwelling units or the burden on the town of Ajax. And so it is a situation in which, in my submission, a credit is appropriate. Now, we all know from being familiar with the statute and reviewing the staff report that the Development Charges Bylaw provides that an owner who has obtained a demolition permit may be given a credit. Now, it's simply our submission in this case that granting a credit here is clearly consistent with both the spirit and the objectives of the Development Charges Act and the Development Charges Bylaw of the town of Ajax. And Mr. Landry quite simply requests that council exercise its discretion under the Development Charges Bylaw to permit the full credit against the development charges being levied here. Our alternative submission is that if council concludes in its deliberations that it lacks such jurisdiction and does not possess the discretion to relieve or to grant the credit in the circumstances of this case, then Mr. Landry would request that council direct town staff to enter into discussions with him regarding an agreement under Section 9 of the Development Charges Bylaw and Section 27 of the Development Charges Act, which both permit the town to enter into an agreement with the owner to defer or extend the time for payment of development charges. So it's our alternative submission that if the council does not or considers that it does not possess the discretion to relieve Mr. Landry of the development charges by granting the credit, that it consider, and I realize this is a matter that has to be discussed as between staff and the owner, but to direct the staff to discuss with Mr. Landry an alternative opportunity to deal with the situation, which is a specific agreement under Section 9 of the Development Charges Bylaw to waive, well, not waive, I shouldn't say that, to defer or extend the time for payment as provided under those statutes. Subject to any questions, those are our brief submissions.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. Questions, Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for that outline. Just a very quick question. So you mentioned in 2021, the applicant applied or attempted to come to Town Hall to apply for the permit, but the offices were closed due to COVID. Is that correct?
That's right. That is what happened in April 2021 in the midst of the demolition, yes.
So I was under the impression, and I don't know if this is a question to staff, Chair, I don't know if that's appropriate, but I thought we were pretty much up to full business as normal in terms of we had dedicated in-person staff by 2021 April. Am I incorrect? Would the offices have been closed for any reason in April 2021?
Through the chair to Councillor Lee, our offices, the Planning and Development Department was open.
Right. You always had staff there, right?
We had staff at front counter, and we had all PPE and proper procedures and protocols in place
Okay,
to treat anybody coming into our facility to help them with any services that they need.
That's what I assumed. I just wanted to confirm because, I think even council was back to full complement at that point. So, I mean, if that's being said, how many times did he attempt to come into the office, I guess? Was it just the one time it was closed and then?
My understanding, sir, is that he came the one time, and I wasn't, of course, present, so I don't know what door he went to, but that he was frustrated in his ability to come in, and someone may have come to the door and spoken to him, but didn't let him in. And my understanding is that at that time, the demolition was in process, and that he was concerned about leaving it open. So I can't say to you that he came back on several other occasions to obtain either a demolition permit in process or even following retroactively.
But by in process, you would it stand to mean that even if he didn't have the permit, the demolition would have gone through anyways? Like if it's already in process, correct?
That's right. That's right. And
Without the permit at that time?
there's no question that the demolition was started and completed without the permit.
Okay.
And I guess the point that I'm making is that when Mr. Landry felt that he was, and we're not criticizing the town here, by the way, felt that he was unable to get the answer he needed, he felt that I can't leave this half demolished house in the condition that it is and the location that it is because it poses even a greater hazard than it posed before, which is why he completed the demolition.
Okay.
And it's my understanding that it's not possible to obtain a retroactive demolition permit. Had that been possible, we would certainly seek it, but I understand that that was not possible. But those are the facts that I understand.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Henry?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question. We've already established that planning was open at the time by our own staff. Was there a record of phone calls or emails that your client made to the town and were not returned? Any email proof that you've reached out to our planning staff and nothing was returned?
My understanding is that there were telephone calls. I am not aware that there were emails sent. And I'm not sure, I don't have a record, I don't have a specific, sworn evidence with respect to the dates and times of the telephone calls, so I can't satisfy you with respect to that.
Respectfully, to come before us and ask for such a big give, you should have them, because we know that we were open. So if you're asking us to make an adjustment here based on the fact that he tried to get a hold of our staff, you're not offering any proof that he tried. I hope you can understand where I'm coming from.
I understand your point, Councillor, and I have what I have.
Okay, thank you.
You, Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Good afternoon, Mr. Montgomery. Thank you for your presentation to us. So, and I'm sorry if you did state this and I missed it. Was your client aware that demolition permit was required before the demolition could begin? And if he was, or they were, why did they choose to start it without getting that permit first?
This is a good question. I think the simple answer is that they were not aware that a permit was required.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's my question, Mayor.
Seeing no further questions in the speakers list, I do have a couple. Many of mine were asked by Councillor Lee. I just wondered, we collect DCs on behalf of the town and the region. Did you also appeal the regional portion?
I did not,
this?
and I ought to have done so, but I didn't send a companion letter to the region.
The regional portion is significantly higher than our portion. Why would you have neglected to apply to the region?
I thought that they were actually the same, approximately the same amount, 40,000 and 40,000-ish. But in any case, we did not contact the region. It was certainly the understanding that we had that this was the route to take.
And you said you want to use the building for residential and commercial use?
Home office use.
Home office use?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not going to get too much into that. That's not relevant to the DCs. That's the only question I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing nothing else, thank you for your delegation.
Thank
We'll
you.
move on to, where is it? The delegation from staff will be next, or are we just going to go with the written report in the thing? I'm sorry, I don't have your name, sir?
Making submission on.
Sorry, John
Pappas, P-A-P-P-A-S.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll be making very brief submissions on behalf of town
Thank
staff.
you. I would just mention that your present, or the delegation or the town's report is printed in the agenda, and we have read it. So please go ahead. You'll have 20 minutes.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. I'll be quite brief, given the facts are materially in dispute. The key one being a demolition permit was never obtained for removing the house that was previously on this site. Under the town's development charges bylaw, the relevant section that the complaint relies on is subsection 8 sub 1, and I'd ask that staff call that up, or alternatively in the report, if that's the alternative. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Subsection 8.1 is the section upon which the complaint relies. And I'll note before reading it, this is not a mandatory requirement of a development charges bylaw under the Development Charges Act. This is a discretionary provision that every municipality has discretion whether or not to include in its development charges bylaw. And that being the case, although the principle of what's reflected in this provision changes from one municipality to the next, council has discretion when it adopts its development charges bylaw to draft this type of a credit or this type of an exemption in whichever way it sees fit. And council has exercised that discretion with very clear language in this case. What it provides is that an owner who has obtained a demolition permit and demolished existing dwelling units or a non-residential building or structure in accordance with the provisions of the Building Code Act shall not be subject to the development charge with respect to the development being replaced. And that's how council has exercised its discretion in this instance. It's made the requirement to get a permit secured by the Building Code Act mandatory in order for this credit to apply. And here I don't think it's materially in dispute. You've heard from my friend that the existing structure or the structure that was previously existing on the property was demolished and removed without a permit, although there had been some level of attempts made to contact town staff to get one. In this circumstance, Your Worship and members of council, it's my submission that it's not enough to look at the spirit of the bylaw or what the purpose of development charges are. Council doesn't have discretion in this circumstance to post hoc determine the amount of a development charge or give credits. Council's role is circumscribed by Section 20 of the Development Charges Act. And it can correct or rectify an error, but it's my submission that none have occurred here. If the bylaw only provided for a credit in the instance of demolition, there may have been some avenue or wiggle room, I suppose, for the complainant to make a submission that a building permit is not required, or a demolition permit, I should say, is not required in the circumstances. But that's not the case here, and it's quite clear that your bylaw, the rules that you as council have put in place for administering the development charges regime, requires that an applicant obtain a demolition permit in order for this credit to apply. On that basis, Your Worship and members of council, it's my submission on behalf of town staff that council should dismiss this complaint. Subject to any questions, those are my submissions.
Thank you. Any questions from members of council to Mr. Pappas? Hearing, seeing none, thank you very much for your delegation. I don't know what reply submissions are. So,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if the complainant has any responses, they're welcome to do so.
does the complainant have any responses to the delegation from staff?
To the delegation on behalf of town staff, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members of council, this is now where we can deliberate in public or we can go in closed session to deliberate before making a decision. Does any member of council need to go in camera for discussion on this matter? No, that's what I'm asking. Okay. We also have the option of making a decision today or deferring a decision. I'm happy to make a decision today. I have a motion here in front of me. I'll just speak to this quickly and I'll read the motion. I understand, you know, that the demolition permit wasn't acquired. That's one thing. It happens sometimes, but then they went and built two more properties, two more buildings without a building permit. This still isn't issued, which I'm not okay with. I would see that as rewarding bad behavior, and that's not what I think that we are here to do. I am satisfied that the town's acted appropriately in this matter, and I am happy to support the recommendation that's in the agenda, which is to, upon review of the evidence and submissions of the complainant, the Section 20 Development Charge Act complaint at 620 Taunton Road East, McCapco Holdings, Inc., be hereby dismissed as no error was made on the application of the town of Ajax. I do have the motion here in front of me to that effect. Development Charge Complaint, 620 Taunton Road East, Ajax, 3.14, Town Submission, FIN 2025-20, Development Charges Complaint pursuant to Sections 20 of the DC Act 1997, RE 620 Taunton Road East, moved by Councillor Lee, second by Councillor Dyes, that upon review of the evidence and submissions of the complainant, the Section 20 Development Charge Act complaint is be hereby dismissed as no error is made. Development charges bylaw and the amount applicable development charges was correctly determined in accordance with the Development Charge Act 1997 DCA as well as the town's development charge DC bylaw. Councillor Lee, you wish to speak?
I just want to add on to the points you made. I also don't want to set this precedent that residents can not apply for the regulatory permits and get things done after the fact or negotiated after the fact. I think we have a really good process that many of our residents do follow, and we should continue with that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other member council? Okay, hearing seeing none, the motion's on the floor. Please open the vote. And that carries. Thank you, members of council. Thank you for staff. Thank you for the delegation from the proponent. This concludes that matter, so I will adjourn this hearing portion, go into our regular meeting of Ajax Council. These are out of order. Give me 1 second. There we go. First item we have is the adoption of the minutes. Moved by Councilor Tyler Moore and second by Councilor Crawford that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on September 15th, 2025 be adopted. Questions, comments on the minutes? Councilor Lee? No? Those in favor? I did the land acknowledgement. You want me to do it again? Focus. Focus. That carries. Question period. Does any member of the public have any questions arising from matters on today's agenda? To the clerk, did anybody, member of the public online with any questions on matters in today's agenda?
To you, Mr. Chair, no questions.
Thank you. We have two delegations. Well, one delegation, one presentation. The first delegation, Greenwood Conservation Lands background, Dave Meredith, Director of Operations, Environmental Services. Mr. Meredith, please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the next two presentations, my presentation and the delegation after me, are both tied to the same project. Sort of my intent is just to provide a bit of background and context to the Brock South lands, which are the lands south of the 5th, west of the existing Greenwood Conservation Authority over to the westerly town boundary with the city of Pickering. And for this council's benefit, not all members of council were here when the original master plan for Brock South was developed. So that master plan was developed in the sort of 2011 to 2013 timeframe. And in 2013, a presentation was made and a master plan was endorsed by council. In addition to endorsing the master plan, there is also part of the resolution which authorized staff to negotiate at the appropriate time to add the Brock South lands to the TRCA management agreement, and it would also include the existing Greenwood Conservation Authority lands. As part of the 2013 report, there was also a implementation plan, which would extend over the next 5 years, being between 2014 and 2019. Just to get to the next slide, where I have identified sort of what some of the key components were within that master plan that was to be implemented over the subsequent 5-year period. Primarily, there was a network of trails that were proposed to be constructed. There was a trails master plan sort of within the overall master plan that spoke to sort of the conceptual layout and framework of a trail planned through the Brock South lands, which include integrating to the existing Greenwood Conservation Authority. One of the key components was also the decommissioning of the existing leash-free park and the construction of a new leash-free park comprising an area of approximately 15 hectares. And one of the important components is that there would be a key water feature that would be part of that leash-free dog park. There was also a component of it which looked at the stop-up enclosure of Church Street. So essentially, as you would come north on Church Street from Taunton Road, you would hit a terminus where you would then enter a new Greenwood conservation area that would essentially consolidate the Brock South lands with the existing Greenwood Conservation Authority, and there'd be east-west connections crossing the existing Church Street as part of that. Essentially, there would be a trailhead that would be developed sort of at the Church Street terminus, similar to the entrance off of Greenwood as it stands today, so that you'd have both a north-south and an east-west connection, sort of as far as the trailhead goes. There is also planned improvements or parking lot upgrades. Accessibility was front and center as it relates to the trail development and the identification of an accessible fishing platform. And then right at the sort of the southeast corner of the 5th concession and the town's westerly boundary, sideline 16, there was sort of what was defined at that time as a sort of a public use area. Wasn't clearly defined in terms of what that would look at. It was subject to future design, but it had the opportunity to incorporate mountain biking, low ropes, community gardens, those types of uses which would be appropriate for that site. And then there would also be interpretive and wayfinding signage that was part of the overall master plan implementation. And just sort of my last slide was as part of that report in October of 2013. At that time, the 407 was going through its expansion. The 412 was being constructed. There was fill revenue that was being generated by TRCA that was essentially the funding source that would lead to the implementation of the master plan. And at that time, sort of the estimated 5-year implementation plan was about $3.5 million. So as many of you are aware, there's not as much as we had hoped that had been implemented from that point in time. There has been continued activity in terms of the fill operation, in terms of the naturalization, the restoration, planning for the implementation of some of the elements that we've captured here. TRCA will speak a little bit more to that. But obviously, since 2013, the cost of implementation is significantly higher today, in today's dollars, than it would have been between 2014 and 2019. I guess at that point in time, it was mostly partnerships, fill revenue that was being looked at from an implementation standpoint, not as much from a town perspective. There was one component, and I'm talking about sort of the trailhead of Church Street, to do in a similar way to the way the entrance off of Greenwood is right now. And we'd indicated that, you know, we wanted to sort of elevate what that could look like as you enter the new Greenwood Conservation Area. And we'd indicated that we would look to incorporate some enhancements at that trailhead as part of our budget process sort of in the future. And the last thing I mentioned is, as we move through implementation, there's a commitment, and we still share the commitment, that these lands will form part of the TRCA management agreement, but not until it gets to a point of implementation that we would assume that maintenance responsibility. So it's always been subject to a lot of these improvements being made in advance of our commitment and obligation. So that's sort of the end of my presentation today, just in terms of providing a bit of background and context. I think our plan and hope was that we could have TRCA sort of transition to their presentation so that we can have all of the information and then open it up to questions and answers to both TRCA staff and town staff, sort of after they've had an opportunity to speak. But I'll turn it over to the chair and provide your thoughts.
Thank you. Just to council, I see two people in the list, and I didn't mention this at the beginning, which I should have. What I would like to do is do the delegation and the presentation first, and then open it to questions, so we're not asking the same questions to both. So we're going to go over to the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Meredith. Greenwood Conservation Lands, Emily Markovic, Senior Manager, Government and Community Relations, TRCA. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, members of council, for having us here today. We were requested to come and speak on behalf of, by Ajax staff to speak to you about the Greenwood Conservation Area, provide you with an update of where we are and where we've been and where we're going to move forward. So just a brief overview and history of the Greenwood Conservation Lands. In 2008, TRCA acquired the former Brock North and Brock South landfill sites from the City of Toronto. In 2010, fill operations commenced on the Brock North and Brock sites, and revenue that's been generated through those fill operations is reinvested into the lands for ecological restoration projects and recreational projects. I want to just point out the nomenclature that I'll be using through the presentation here. When we're referring to the Greenwood Conservation Lands, we're referring to all of the lands that are shown here on the map that are owned by TRCA. The Greenwood Conservation Area is the specific area of the property that's currently being managed by the town of Ajax. So in terms of governance and oversight, as mentioned by Dave, in 2014, the Brock Lands Restoration Plan and Greenwood Conservation Lands Master Plan were finalized. These plans meant to identify the overarching goals and opportunities to restore ecological function to the Greenwood lands and to guide current and future public uses. Implementation of the master plan is coordinated by TRCA with consultation with the Greenwood Advisory Committee. And on that committee is represented by Durham Region, Town of Ajax, and the City of Pickering. The master plan identified a number of different projects to be carried out. I've highlighted some of the projects that were noted for the lands that are within the town of Ajax. So you can see some of those projects here related to trail works, restoration, recreational activities, as well as natural and cultural heritage and stewardship projects. As envisioned in the master plan and the restoration plan, these projects are being planned or actively being advanced in the town of Ajax. Recreational and access priorities at this point in time are related to the new off-leash dog park and associated amenities, as well as the decommissioning of Church Street. Just to highlight some of these projects that we're referring to here, the dog park and canine splash pad, the vision for this is promoting a welcoming space and encouraging public use in a less environmentally sensitive area on the property. More recently, there was a maple leaf planting event that took place in 2025 in partnership with Trees for Life. And right now, we're at the 70% detailed design stage on that project through our consultant that was retained to do that work. So this is a 50-acre park. It'll include a dog off-leash area, canine splash pad, parking facilities, restoration, as well as trail connections. The Church Street decommissioning project, this would see the conversion of Church Street north of Taunton Road into a 3-meter wide asphalt trail with parking facilities. It would also offer trail connections to existing and planned networks across the lands. And the conceptual, at this point in time, it's in a very conceptual design stage. Detailed design is planned in the future. What we're understanding right now is through conversations with Ajax staff is that decommissioning is actually less costly over the long term when it comes down to maintenance and operational costs. And just to highlight some of the restoration priorities on the Ajax lands, so the Brock South Wetland Complex, this is a 50-acre complex in the town of Ajax that will include trail lookouts, connections to the rest of the property, connections to off-leash dog park, and Church Street. that we're also receiving additional fill revenue through this site for reinvestment across the property. The south portion of that wetland was designed in partnership by Ducks Unlimited, and the remainder of the site is going to be designed by an external consultant. Advancing over to the financial overview component. So to date, fill revenue generation from the Brock North and Brock South sites is around 9.3 million. An additional 1.8 million is projected through to 2026. Currently, the way that we have allocated funds, 5.7 million of that fill revenue is allocated for project delivery in Ajax. The fill revenue that we see will also be leveraged to seek additional funding through grants and partnerships, and we've estimated 3.5 million based on past fundraising success. Despite the fill revenue generation and fundraising that we have been able to identify, or opportunities we're able to identify, current revenue projections do fall short to fund all of the projects based on a number of factors, partially being expanded project scopes, and of course inflation and cost and actual cost estimates. We are in ongoing discussions with our municipal partners to identify the priorities and address funding shortfalls on a project-specific basis, and this may include potential municipal funding contributions and budget requests. The evolution of project planning and delivery. So when the master plan was developed, and in 2014, a number of priorities were identified and costs were estimated based on best available information at that time. The master plan directed the advancement of the restoration plan, but it did not actually account for the cost of that restoration. So the cost wasn't included as part of that cost exercise in the master planning process. Certainly, fill revenue was identified as the key source of funding for project implementation. That being said, since 2014, project costs have increased due to inflation, detailed project costing, refined project scoping, and evolving regulatory and approval requirements. And just to provide a few examples of what we're seeing in terms of master plan identified costing and real-time costing right now, the master plan had identified that dog off-leash area would be about $220,000. Looking at the project costing that we're doing now through that detailed design process, we're looking at estimates between $1 and $1.5 million to deliver that project. So certainly seeing a big change as we refine the scope of those projects and as we take into account true costs in today's dollars. Similarly, the Church Street decommissioning project was valued at $1 million in the master plan, and this included a number of different components, not just the decommissioning of Church Street itself. It included a number of trail activities and wayfinding, things like that, but the current cost estimates are seeing it between 1.5 and 2.5 million. In terms of long-term management of the Greenwood lands, we have an agreement that is being currently developed with the town of Ajax for the management of that Greenwood conservation area specifically. We are looking at additional management agreements to address the long-term needs in terms of identifying priorities, roles and responsibilities, long-term management and maintenance, and funding commitments. Next steps, TRCA, we will continue to coordinate and implement the master plan in collaboration with the advisory committee. We'll continue fundraising and partnership development to advance priority projects. We will continue ongoing dialogue with our municipal partners to address priority projects and to advance and address funding shortfalls, and this may include future budget requests. And we will continue to engage our municipal partners to identify management agreement needs. What we're looking for today is, we're here to provide you with an update, but we're looking for Ajax Council support to continue to advance the Greenwood Conservation Lands Master Plan and to continue the collaboration that we've been doing with the town of Ajax to advance the priorities for the Greenwood lands. And with that, I'll wrap up and open it up for questions.
Thank you. I do have a couple in the speakers list. Councillor Henry, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a new councillor to the town of Ajax. This is my first term. I wasn't here when this was agreed upon, so I'm going to ask some pretty basic questions. Sorry for that. And until this subject matter came up on an agenda, I had never even heard that this was an ability to happen. So I just want to ask, first of all, who owns that land of the road on Church Street? Is that owned by the town of Ajax, or is that owned by TRCA? The actual road itself?
The road itself is owned by the town of Ajax.
So it currently is our road, and it's our choice whether or not to give it up, correct? Yes. Has there been any traffic studies done in the last 4 years with regards to proposed increased traffic from all the new development up in that area since this was originally talked about in 2011, 2013?
Sorry, just Councillor Henry, we're going to get into that with staff when we actually have the resolution on the floor, or when we get to, sorry, the report. I wonder if you can ask your questions to the TRC rep on their stuff now, and we'll do the staff stuff after.
Understood, Mr. Mayor. With regards to what you're asking for today, is you're asking for funding in order to proceed with this, correct?
Through the chair to you, Councillor Henry, thank you for that question. No, we're not here asking for a budget request or municipal funding request at this point in time. We just want to seek support to continue to advance those priority projects, to refine the scope of those projects, and it could potentially mean coming forward to council in the future for budget requests, but we're not at that point in time with those specific projects to understand what those budget asks might look like.
So what are the supports then? If you're not asking for funding, what supports are you asking for us to recommit to the project?
Really, it's just to allow us to continue to advance those discussions.
Okay. All right, I'll save my other questions. Thank you.
Councillor Crawford?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, thank you for your presentation. I was elected 5 minutes and I was put onto the Greenwood Advisory Committee. And so I was part of the original group that was discussing this back in 2013, I think it was developed. Does the advisory committee still meet? And who's on it? Because I've never received an invite since, so I don't know if that speaks to my...
You made a good impression.
Yeah.
Through the chair, thank you. Yes, the advisory committee is active and it does meet quite regularly. I will actually call up my colleague Dana Sheridan, who's with me today. She has a lot of more of that hands-on experience with the oversight of the advisory committee, and I'll pass it over to her to answer that question.
Thank you, Emily. Through you, Mr. Chair. It's the steering committee is meeting regularly. It's staff representation, not council representation. Okay. So don't worry, you didn't make a bad impression.
I wasn't looking for another meeting, but yes. Just curious.
Exactly. So it is staff. It is Region of Durham, Town of Ajax, City of Pickering, and TRCA staff coordinating that. And we are meeting
that makes
2
more
to
sense.
3 times a year. Yeah.
So the money that that would be designated to Ajax, is it the same amount designated then to Pickering, or how does that work?
Through the chair, we look at the fill revenue that's generated and it's applied across all the conservation lands. So we're not necessarily taking money from the south and allocating it into the south. But as mentioned in that presentation, roughly 9.3 million has been generated to date. I believe it was about 1.8 that we're projecting, and 5.7 of that is allocated for project delivery in Ajax. Does that answer your question?
I think so, yeah. I love Greenwood. Arguably, it's the most beautiful place that we have here in Ajax. And if it weren't for the ticks, I'd be there a lot more. But yeah, thank you. I love the whole area, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Just adding to what Regional Councillor Crawford asked about. So on your slide, it was 5.7 million of fill revenue is currently allocated for project delivery in Ajax. And then the funding breakdown that you gave for the off-leash dog park and the Church Street decommissioning, even at the new current projected cost estimate, if you take the maximum of that, that is 1.5 plus 2.5, so it's 4 million. So it's under the 5.3. So I'm just curious why you would be requesting or possibly Are those the only projects that need funding, or why would you think you might need to come back if there's more than $1 million left?
Yeah, through the chair, thank you. That's a great question. We've highlighted some of the key projects that we know are of priority to the town of Ajax at this point in time for advancement, but there are a number of other projects that are not highlighted in the presentation in terms of some of the trail work, the restoration work. So there's a lot of other components that are being planned and being advanced. So when we're looking at the full scope of all those projects combined, that's where we're starting to see those funding shortfalls.
Okay. And are those numbers, will they also be presented to Ajax Council?
We'd be more than happy to share the more detailed project costing if you'd like to see those.
Okay. Thank you. I'm not sure, possibly, but thank you. That was my question, Mayor Collier.
Okay, Councillor Dice.
Thank you. Is there any way that we can get a copy of the management plan for council sort of to review and get a feel of what it was all about? Because I remember one of the projects was going to be a mountain biking facility in the north, and yet that was a priority which has not happened. Why was that? Do you know?
So through the chair, it's my understanding that through those discussions with the advisory committee, some of those projects have not been as high priority as others in terms of advancing those discussions and advancing the planning for those. And it's my understanding that some of those, that the work around the mountain biking trails wasn't seen as a top priority for advancement at this point in time. I will hand it over to Deanna if she might have additional feedback on that one.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Dice. Yes, you're right. That was one of the things that was identified, partly dealing with the issue that we were having there of just so many mountain biking trails going on and really trying to locate people in the proper areas that are going to provide the least environmental damage. Part of that was also trying to work with an organized mountain biking group, and we hadn't had success in that sort of happening. It is something we are still working on, but as Emily mentioned, through discussions with the steering committee, we've sort of shifted that in terms of priorities and are trying to focus on some of the other activities that our municipal partners have said they want to really reprioritize there.
And the leash-free area is a very, very, very popular area, obviously. And I know it's an old dump site which you'll be putting more fill in, or some fill in, I take it. Hasn't had any yet, I don't believe. Am I correct, or?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. There's been some in and around that area,
Okay.
a little bit more to the south, but that is part of what we've been working on, is making sure we have the final design area so that we know if there is additional fill that is required there.
The leash-free area, is that still the location that it was proposed initially? It seems further, further to the west.
And through Mr. Chair. Yes, it is. Generally in that same area, we have had to shift it slightly. We are looking at areas that are making it safe for people to enter and exit out of the road, onto the road there. Also being aware of what other infrastructure and servicing is in that area and trying to avoid that as much as possible. So slightly, but generally in that same area that, as Dave had mentioned earlier, was zoned for public use in the master plan.
And has the city of Pickering had a conversation with you about proposed developments in that area and the usage of these parks?
Through you, Mr. Chair, as part of the steering committee, yes, we have had those discussions as to what they are proposing in terms of residential development. It was one of the things that we did look at, is making sure that there is safe pedestrian access in and around that area to help hopefully avoid sometimes having to depend on a car, knowing that there's a lot of residential development that has happened and is coming in that area. Yes, that's been part of our discussion.
Well, I thank you, and I think that's a conversation that should be had with Ajax as well, and Pickering, as to what's going to happen with that, is what the expectations are. We really have no idea at this point because we haven't had any update for quite some time. So thank you for answering my questions.
Councillor Tyler Moore.
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe these are quick questions. The west side of Church there is still the town of Ajax, correct? That's not a border there? And somebody through the Mr. Mayor, anybody confirm that? TRCA, anybody?
Sorry, which area?
So Church Street,
Yep.
The west side of Church Street, north of Taunton Road, is still Ajax. Just,
It's within the town of
yeah,
Ajax,
yeah.
yes.
Okay, just, I know that we're getting west there, just once for the record.
Sideline 16 is the Ajax Pickering boundary.
Yeah, so there's a business called Bond Landscapes, which I don't know if it's up and running, but it's on Google Earth, and we're just looking. That would be affected. Has anybody spoken to that business, or is that, it's not at this time, or is this?
So with respect to the closure of Church Street, it would not
Correct.
impact any private driveways that have access to Church Street right now. The closure would be north of that, so as you get closer to the rail line. So there is no private driveway impact associated with the closure.
In the area in discussion, that we're discussing.
The closure doesn't occur at Taunton Road. It's almost mid-block as you get to the 5th concession, so you're not impacting any of the private driveways.
Okay, so just for my own brain, so 5th concession coming south on Church Street, Greenwood Conservation Dog Park, just keep going south, it's that area?
So when you come south off the 5th,
Yeah.
that would not, you'd obviously not be able to drive south on Church Street. You would come into a parking lot south off the 5th. So when you're coming north to where it stopped up and closed would be a new trailhead. When you come south off the 5th, there would be a smaller parking lot at that location.
So if those businesses wanted to go north, which bet you they do, they probably do now, then they would have to find alternate, correct? Obviously.
You'd not be able to drive
Yeah, okay.
north
Yeah,
through
just-
this area.
Just asking. So nobody's spoken to those businesses as of yet?
Again, I can speak to, there is a bit of a,
Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
Questions to the TRCA delegations, and we'll go to staff after, please.
Okay, I thought, okay, so according to you ladies, nobody's spoken to those businesses, or you haven't? I'm asking.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have not directly. We've been working with the town of Ajax to figure out how
Got it.
we would
Okay.
manage that going
Thank you.
forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I just have a couple, not seeing anything further in the speakers list. Just, sorry, when did you say this new plan was prepared? The new master plan for that area? Did you say it was 2015? That's when you started on the?
To you, Chair, the master plan was finalized in 2014, correct? Yeah.
Okay. And when was this supposed to have been addressed, according to that master plan?
So I think the master plan had a 5-year time frame tied to it. But in terms of the time lag on where we were then and where we are now, fill operations took a little bit longer to get going than we had anticipated. And then we needed to have some of that fill revenue generated and put away and put aside for project implementation. So the projects that were scheduled to happen in the town of Ajax specifically have not necessarily been implemented at this point in time, with the exception of the Brock South wetland, which is currently underway. A lot of the work that's been done currently across the Greenwood conservation lands has been more focused on the lands in Pickering, with a number of restoration projects implemented.
Okay, well, my question was, when was this supposed to have been addressed in the 2014 master plan, originally? Like, I mean, when the fill operations ended years ago.
Sorry, fill operations are still active,
Okay.
and they should be running until about 2026.
Okay, so it wasn't implemented when it was originally supposed to, because you were waiting for the revenue from the fill operations?
Yeah, through a number of different factors, as I mentioned. We were waiting for fill revenue to start up. Fill revenue, the fill operations actually took a little bit longer to start than we had anticipated, and of course, they're still ongoing.
Okay. And I don't mean this disrespectfully, but I look at this as a solution looking for a problem. I've been using the current site on the east of Church Street to walk my dogs for decades, like probably 30 years, I would think. Why is there an issue with this? Why does the TRC feel you have to spend $5.7 million, whatever it ends up being, to decommission a perfectly good site that is very, very busy, as Councillor Dye's acknowledged it is, to move it across the road?
Sure. To you, Mr. Chair.
To a former dump site?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Very well noted. And I might refer back to Emily on some point here because she is an ecologist in training too, so she definitely can speak more eloquently to some of the ecological impacts here. One of the things that we do know is that Duffins Creek is one of our highest quality watersheds that we have here, and the Duffins Creek does run through part of that, or next to that area that people do use as an off-leash area. Through extensive consultation through the master planning process, we recognize that it is well used, and at the same time, we're also recognizing the environmental value that it does provide. As a conservation authority and as conservation authority owned lands, we do feel that is of primary importance to TRCA. And so in order to help minimize and mitigate some of that impact, we recognize that we want to provide another alternative location where there had been already a lot of human impact, and that we could create somewhere that is actually better and draw people away from that, giving us the chance to actually do some more restoration, improve upon the existing ecological functions in that area. So that is part of that reason as to why we have recommended that. And as I mentioned, that was extensive public consultation that we went through with that. At the time, I unfortunately was on maternity leave at the time that this was being done. But when I did return, I did hear a lot about it, and that was probably one of our most popular, well-attended meetings that we did have, with lots and lots of engagement. So it's not easy to make a change, and I hear you. That happens a lot with some of our areas that people have been doing things for a number of years. We are trying to change the habit there, recognizing, again, as we said, this is very important in terms of the ecological function of not only that immediate area, but the larger Duffins Creek watershed.
Has there been any decrease in quality or any loss of wildlife in Duffins Creek in the last 10, 20 years that would, affect you wanting to move?
Thank you, Chair. I can try to try to answer that question for you. So certainly you can see where there is a lot of human activity and pressure on the ecological function of those areas. You're going to see some impact from that. That being said, if we're talking about the Duffins Creek more broadly throughout that whole system, we certainly are seeing impacts over
the
time.
section
But in that
where the dog
specific
park-
location, yeah, we're certainly seeing access to the water course. Dogs are in there playing around. That's what dogs love to do, and I think that's part of the reason why we're looking at relocating it and incorporating a water feature so that we can kind of create that opportunity in a way where you're not going to have that continued impact on Duffins Creek.
Okay, and respectfully, I'm not trying to be a smartass here. I'm just saying, $5.7 million is a lot of money to stop dogs playing in a creek for the last 30-plus years, to my experience. And this is how I look at our budgets.
Mm-hmm.
Is the cost worth the result? And that's what I'm trying to understand, because ultimately you're going to have to come up with the money. My next question is, what happens if you don't come up with the 1.8 million or whatever the shortfall is? It could be more if costs continue to rise.
Yeah, to you, Chair. That's a great point. And I think one of the things that are coming out of this conversation and as we move forward is ensuring that we're scoping what is required to realize that vision for that new dog park, because right now the cost estimates are looking at between $1.5 to $2 million, something like that, and that's through 70% detailed design. But some of that can be scoped back if that's what is at the town of Ajax's preference.
So assuming you come up with the 1.8 or whatever it is, and you go ahead with this new plan on the west side of Church Street, and we're going to deal with whether we want to close Church Street or not in the next round of questions to staff. I guess I want to know, when would that be? I mean, are you not doing anything until you get this additional funding? And once you get the additional funding, is there like a year's worth of site plan you have to go through or something? Are we 1 year away from this potentially, or are we 5 years away from this? And what happens to the current site in the meantime?
So thank you for that question. I think that what we're going to see in the next little while is refined to that project scoping. 70% detailed design is where we are right now, but there are certainly some conversations to be had about what that final design looks like, and of course there will be that project implementation planning that would be required. So we're not talking about something that's going to be built in the immediate future, but I think that the priorities right now are just to see that project being implemented in the next couple of years. Deanna, I'm not sure if you have any more detailed on that that in terms of where that planning is going in the next little while. But we just wanted to make sure that we are considering what that site could look like and making sure that we're addressing the priorities through that public consultation exercise. And we do believe that there is going to be additional public consultation going forward as we advance that design.
Okay, so in the meantime, I know a couple of years ago I brought forward to staff, we did walk the site. I don't remember if you were there. I know your CEO was there and a few of the others and my staff. And we did expand the use of the dog park and expand the boundaries, I believe. Mr. Meredith, is that correct? Yeah, okay. If the town, which we operate this under a management contract with TRCA, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, but
Yeah,
the
okay.
management agreement is
So if we
being worked
wanted to, you know, this is a growing thing. I mean, a lot of people got dogs during COVID. There's a lot of dogs in Ajax. And this not just Ajax, people go here. People come from across Durham to go to this site. It's so good. If we wanted to, is there any problem with us using it as is from now until this other is done?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I don't think there's any intention to close down
Okay.
the existing dog park until there's a new facility available.
And if we needed to make some adjustments or expansions, is there any issue with that? As long as we consult with the TRCA.
So it depends. I know that's not a great answer necessarily. It depends. I think we would look for you to approach TRCA, Town of Ajax to approach TRCA as to what those improvements might be, and we would have to evaluate them to see if they would be in compliance with any regulations and requirements that we have.
Okay, I'm not talking about additional uses. I'm just saying boundaries and that type of thing.
Again, as with any improvements that would be made or changes to areas, lands that you are managing on behalf of TRCA, what we do request is that you come and approach TRCA with what that would be, and we discuss it.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Bauer, you wanted back in? Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Collier. Just a follow-up to your comments and questions. So the 5.7 million that's currently allocated for Project Deliver in Ajax, you're not fundraising that. You already have that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, through the chair. Thank you. That is correct. That's the money that we've currently, sorry, let me take a step back there. We have currently fundraised through fill revenue generation 9.3, and we anticipate 1.8 in the coming year. And so 5.7 of that total is allocated for project delivery across the projects that are planned for Ajax.
Okay, thank you. And just as a question, if we were not to support the continuation of this project, the master plan, what happens to that money? Who gets that money?
Well, that money will continue to be invested into the lands, because as TRCA is the owners, we'll continue to take that refill revenue, and we're going to continue to invest it into ecological restoration projects on the lands. I think what we'll see is if we don't have council support to continue to advance those, that'll impact the specific recreational priorities that the town has for those lands.
Okay. Okay, thank you. No, that's it, thanks.
Okay. Not seeing any further requests in my speaker's box here, so thank you very much for your delegation.
Thank you.
I'll now open up questions to town staff on the town portion of this. Councillor Henry. And I think Councillor Tyler Moore, and I'll put you next because I cut you off as well. So press your button.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to town staff, so my first question is, has there been a traffic study done in this term of council with regards to Church Street? And well, I'll let you answer that question first.
Through the chair, with respect to this term of council, no. There is a bit of history as it relates to the closure of Church Street, sort of at the proposed location. So as part of the master plan, the concept and the implementation clearly referenced the closure of Church Street, sort of midpoint between the 5th and Taunton Road. At the same time, while that was shown conceptually, at that time, Church Street was shown in the region official plan as a type C arterial road. So we had to go through a planning process and get sort of Church Street removed as a type C arterial from the official plan, which we did.
In what year?
Oh, this would be the would have been subsequent to 2013 because there were a couple of type C arterial roads that we were dealing with. So between 2014 and 17, somewhere in that ballpark, I'm estimating, but that's the general time frame. It was closely after the master plan was implemented. So Church Street was removed as a type C arterial road, which gave us the ability to then stop up and close it at a particular point. So a lot of that planning work and the rationale for the closure or the potential closure of Church Street would have been dealt with from a planning standpoint at that time frame.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, no, that's fine.
At that time, we didn't have the developments up on Kenton Lane, Hearst, Standardville, all those places. And we didn't have the development that's coming up along Taunton and Church just south of Taunton. Was all that taken into consideration?
Yes, it was. Although it wasn't built or constructed, the draft plans of subdivision were in place, they were being processed, so that as background and projected future development was taken into consideration.
So I'd like to just say, like, I realize, my first term of council, this is the second time I've heard of a road closure since being on this council. And I really feel that there should be an open and public consultation about this. A lot's changed since 2013 till now. A lot of people have moved out and moved into this area. And I feel that I wouldn't be doing my ward justice if I didn't ask for public consultation on this as well as a traffic study. And I'll leave that with the rest of council to see how they feel about that. Thank you.
Councillor Tyler Moore, and you're next.
Oh, thank you. So you already, excuse me, through the chair, through the mayor to Mr. Baker, or Mr. Meredith, sorry. You've already answered my question regarding, so just followed up with a comment. As my colleague just said, Councillor Henry, about the closure of a road and the consultation with those businesses and everyone else. I realize that it's Greenbelt, we can't build homes up there, but there are homes being built just south of there, and I'm sure they use it as a corridor. I understand it's a busy road as we speak, so yeah, hopefully we can have a fulsome review, traffic review, and talk to the folks as well. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Dias.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Meredith. So I'm looking at this map that's on page 16 in our agenda. And obviously, if there's a proposal for a sports complex, that speaks volumes to me that there's going to be some development in that area. Has Pickering spoken to us through planning about that? About the development in the area? Because if they're putting a sportsplex in, it's going to be highly used, which brings more people into the area.
I would suggest that Pickering's planned use on their lands for more active recreation was known sort of as we went through the original master plan process. So through the stakeholder engagement, through all the Seton discussions, sort of it was known what the intended use on the Pickering lands were. So that's not something that we weren't aware of. It is something that, as mentioned earlier, the Technical Advisory Committee for Greenwood that still exists does have Pickering staff, town staff, and TRCA staff. So that information is shared and known and has been since the beginning.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Also, if I remember correctly, there was no cost associated with these changes way back when we made the first agreement because it was assumed the Phil would pay for the costs of building those areas. Is that correct?
That's correct, with the one caveat that I did indicate there were some additional improvements or our vision for the terminus of Church Street as a more prominent entrance into the site may have required some town dollars to invest to get it to the point that we wanted to. So
Right.
The original numbers that TRCA was looking for didn't speak to what we were thinking about as it reflected the current entrance off of Greenwood. So we wanted them to be somewhat similar in scale. So there would have been a future budget request as it relates to that project, but that was the only one that was identified at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Director Meredith, how involved is town staff in the costing of the projects of this master plan?
Town staff we're not involved with the costing. That's
completely
TRCA
TRCA.
is providing some of the work, some of the design, some of the consultants they may use may be in-house, some of them may be external sources that they're using from a detailed design perspective. So they've got their own process that they follow from a design perspective and provide us with the estimated costs. If there was anything that the town was being asked to contribute towards, obviously there'd be a different lens that we would look at because
Okay.
we'd want to make sure that we were appropriately budgeting if there was any form of partnership or town contribution.
Okay, thank you. And the Greenwood Advisory Committee, so is there a full costing, and I'm sorry that I'm asking you and not the representatives from TRCA, but is there an actual sheet that shows all of the projects and what the updated costing will be? Because if we're estimating high at $4 million out of 5.7 to cover the dog park and the street decommissioning, how many projects are left? And 1.7, how far will that go? And the reason I'm asking is this does come down to money. So if the scopes of the projects remaining are in that 1.7 range, then you're not going to ask us for money. So I don't know if does the committee have that? I don't know who to ask that to. I'm sorry that I'm asking you.
Through the chair, I do think it's an important question and a valid question that from my standpoint, what council may wish for is the last, I guess, presentation that council formally saw and approved was the 2013 plan. We've not been back before council with change in scope, updated prices, or anything since that point in time. I do think it is appropriate because there have been some amendments or modifications to the master plan that was originally approved, that an updated sort of schedule of the master plan be brought to council with updated costs on a project by project basis so that we can see sort of what the costs are, where the funding sources are coming from, and identify sort of on a priority basis sort of a new implementation plan over the next 5 years. So I do think following today's discussion that that's appropriate for us to bring back to council is that updated plan with updated costing numbers and implementation strategy as it relates to that as well.
Yes, I fully agree with that, and I would love that to happen. I would request that because we're making a decision here, but we don't have all the info. So those were my questions, and I'll just leave it at that for now. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Councilor Crawford.
Thank you. Through you, when I was on the committee, I don't recall anything about a sportsplex. I mean, we had some tours of the land in Pickering, kind of showing what it could look like. This area, is it like, how do you put a sportsplex in an area like this? Is it Greenbelt?
I don't know specifically from a Greenbelt perspective in the city of Pickering. What I do know is that these lands were being looked at the same time the Seton community was being planned. And from my standpoint and recollection, is there was always active sports fields and a community center that was contemplated on these lands. So that's something that I've always been of the impression which was going to happen in Pickering.
And so then the splash pad for the dogs, it's all servicing, right? That would all have to go through there.
There would be a water feature connection that was always contemplated into the new leash-free area, yes. And now that you've got services across the street, that's something that can be accommodated.
Okay. So if we say to the TRCA, yeah, go ahead and keep doing what you're doing, at what point, assuming that the costs continue to go up, because it never goes down, when would the next ask for money be? Because at that point we might say, no, I don't think so. Yeah. But so I'm not sure what we're asking, what's being asked here.
Nothing. This is the presentation.
So just a presentation, but no, there is an ask. It's seeking council support for continued advancement of the Greenwood Conservative, master plan. That's the last page. There is an ask here. So it's not just a presentation, there is an ask. And so my question is, if this is supported as the ask, you know, I don't want any surprises. You know, you said keep going, and now you owe us $500,000 or $1 million or $3 million, like.
Through the chair, if I can speak to it.
Right here.
A couple of things. First of all, we wouldn't allocate or have any budget dollars allocated to any capital project unless it's funded through our capital budget process. Right, so nothing can bypass our budget process in terms of allocating dollars. So council will always have the authority to approve any money that gets spent on Greenwood. What I do think the presentation speaks to today is that there have been some modifications made to the master plan. There are updated costs that need to be reflected. There's a total dollar value, and then there's a potential shortfall. So I think we need to package it in a more concise way for council so they understand, that we understand sort of what that potential shortfall is, what the sequencing of events are from a project delivery standpoint. And then it gives us an idea, it gives council the opportunity, if we say there's $10 million and it's going to cost $12 million to implement, indirectly there's a request that we're $2 million underfunded. They either look for additional funding opportunities, other partners, or if there's an ask of the town that we would consider, but would have to be fed through our budget process, sort of with respect to the implementation. But at this point in time, I think we're just looking to proceed with those discussions to have a more fully vetted sort of master plan and implementation plan and updated costs to present to council, and we could make a more informed sort of recommendation in terms of the directions as we move forward. But there's absolutely no money in our current forecast that's been allocated for any of these projects. So if you look at our 10-year forecast, you won't see any projects related to the Greenwood implementation. So to go down that path would require council's approval, and we're not there yet.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Wow, folks, back for the second and third and fourth times for some of you. Let's go ahead, Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask you this because I just want to be clear on this, and you can tell me if I have to ask staff or not. Looking at what a regional councillor said, Crawford, on page 16, it does say seeking Ajax Council support for the continued advancement of Greenwood Conservation Lands Master Plan and continued collaboration with the town of Ajax to advance its priorities for the Greenwood lands. So I want to make sure that when we leave here today, I understand we're not voting on anything. This is a presentation. But from a staff perspective, if they're going to come back to council and say, this is the plan going forward, do I need to put in an amendment now or something now to ask for a traffic study for this area before anybody talks about closing Church Street? Yes or no?
The easy answer is no.
Okay,
There's no delegate, there's no presentation, or no motions in front of us. I'm not bringing one.
okay,
I just saw that thing in the agenda 15 minutes ago, or sorry, in the presentation, same as everybody else.
okay.
So I would say, sure, in theory, we're always going to continue to work with the TRCA. Joanne's on their board.
Yes,
But I'm not making any commitments today to funding or to any other commitments. So I would say Church Street is something we can look at separately, and nothing is required today.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Bauer?
Thank you, Mayor. And just to ask Director Meredith, do we need to, if I would like you to work with TRCA to get those updated numbers and plans, do I need to motion that to you, or can I just ask you to do that?
We will do that as part of our work plan scheduling, probably in the early part of the new year.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Collier.
Seeing nothing further, we're moving on to our next delegation, which is item 6.3. Mr. Glass, I don't have the title of your delegation, but we'll give you 5 minutes to tell us what you'd like to tell us today.
I'm here to speak on the GO Land Use Survey results from the past summer. Please forgive me. Thank you, members of council, staff, and mayor. Please forgive me if I'm not my usual chipper self. I'm a bit under the weather. At the October 6th meeting, consultant Catherine Jay briefly highlighted the strong public response. Almost 300 residents participated in a survey, which really is remarkable, and I think she even said so for a midsummer survey. That level of engagement shows how much Ajax residents care about the future of the GO-lands, and it deserves real weight in the decision-making process. The survey results are clear. Residents are not opposed to growth, but they're asking for balance, livability, infrastructure that keeps pace, and development that fits the capacity of our roads, services, schools, and tax base. Around 60% of the respondents support mid-rise, mixed-use buildings between 4 and 25 stories, and only 15% expressed any preference for tall, high-density towers. That's a decisive message. Ajax residents want human-scale, diverse development, and so let's look at the survey, what the results actually told us. 53% want improved transit access, 39% highlighted walkable environments, 61% want trails, 53% want parks and parkettes, 41% flagged parking as a concern, and in the open comments, residents repeatedly raised green space, recreation, affordability, environmental protection, aging infrastructure, and the fear of higher density that will come at the expense of livability. These results, by the way, are on page 39 to 48 of the Land Use Concept Consideration Report. At that same CAP meeting, some discussion suggested that Concept 1 didn't go far enough to meet provincial density demands and should be removed outright from public consideration because it sets us a false expectation. Let me be clear. The provincial standard for major transit areas is 150 people and jobs per hectare. The GO-lands are under 1 square kilometer. That's about 15,000 people when you do the math. Concept 1 proposes 14,000 units, which at 2 people per unit equals roughly 28,000 residents, nearly double the provincial minimum. And we have minimums for a reason, not maximums. Meanwhile, Council has already pledged 17,000 new units across Ajax by 2031, almost 50% more than our current total housing stock. Between approved projects on Roslyn, Salem, Kingston, Harwood, Church, Bailey, and many others, plus the GO-lands that I'm talking about, Ajax is already well ahead of the curve. So the narrative that Ajax needs to do more to satisfy other levels of government is inaccurate. In fact, I think it's quite harmful. The town is doing its part. We're in a bit of a tough time right now with development, I understand that, but we've made significant commitments to do things. When it's suggested that Concept 1 should be scrapped to pursue a new created Concept 3, one introduced without consultant study, simply to pursue higher density, we need to ask who are we building for and at what cost to livability. The resident survey spoke clearly about what people want, and their voices must also shape the GO-lands and the next official plan. I don't think anyone has the right to decide what's realistic for the public except the public themselves. I'm not here to reject growth. I know we need more units. I'm here to urge responsible growth that keeps Ajax livable. Planning should focus on growth that works for residents, not on how Ajax can vastly outperform targets. Already in the area, you've approved 13 towers ranging from 45 to 62 stories high. That totals 8,800 units. That is 60% of the Concept 1 total. Surely it is not unreasonable for residents to ask that the remaining units be built for livability. Residents have spoken thoughtfully and in good faith through the survey, and I hope you listen in the same spirit, because in the end, success won't be measured by how many towers we build. It'll be measured by how livable, how affordable, and how functional this new community becomes as part of the greater Ajax community. Thank you.
Questions, members of council? I just have a couple. Mr. Glass, I've heard you come and delegate many times, many different things, and I appreciate your involvement in taking the time and you know, getting involved and reading on all this. But really, like, what is your concern about the MTSA lands and the secondary plan. The secondary plan is just that, a secondary plan. That doesn't mean that everything is built as exactly as it's going to be on that plan. I don't believe that there's going to be costs incurred by the town as a result of what's built there over time. I'm just trying to understand, what is your concern with this? Because there is public consultation, and in my mind, there's public consultation every 4 years. It's an election. People don't like the way we vote, then they don't reelect us. But we're not going to go back every single time and keep asking the public for every single thing that we do. So please just let me know what really is the underlying issue you have with the MTSA, because this is just getting more information and consulting with the residents.
Yeah, just first two questions I heard there. The public consultation, I understand you did the survey, you're having the open house, hasn't been scheduled yet.
Probably several open houses.
Great.
We haven't decided that yet, but we're going to be discussing
no, and
that
I think
later.
that's great. I know there was one scheduled for October 22nd, but I think we have to have that feedback, and that has to have weight.
Right, we're going to
I
do
was
that.
really concerned when, at the CAP meeting, when Concept 1 was proposed to be scrapped. It is the current standard with respect to the official plan, which is our official plan right now. I think Mr. Romanowski spoke to that. And to just sort of take that out on the basis of, you know, if we give it to the public, we're setting a false expectation. I think we have to give the public what the actual requirements are. Now, what's my opposition to it? Again, I am not against development in that area, right? I understand we need housing, we need affordability, all of those things, and I think that that area can deliver that for the town and for residents. What I am concerned, and when I look at the studies, the report, it's almost 700 pages, the studies don't go far enough in terms of looking at things like traffic, looking at things like the infrastructure.
Right.
And they clearly say in the studies what some of the problems are right now. Let alone adding that many more units in there, let alone all of the other units from the surrounding area, because that is going to be a central spot. You're going to have all people from the Hunt Street, from Roslyn, from converging onto those areas, and when you have upwards of maybe 28, 30,000, and you haven't even studied that as of yet, and you're pursuing some of these plans, I have concerns and what the costs are. So this is what's really getting at where I'm coming from.
So this is just a plan.
Yeah.
Okay. And we do our, and staff, not we staff and consultants do their best to guesstimate based on models how this is, you know, how much traffic, everything else there's going to be. There's no way for us to know until it actually happens. But you do know that Westney is going to be widened to 6 lanes. You do know that Bailey is going to eventually be widened to 6 lanes. You do know that if there isn't any sewer capacity, but if there is sewer capacity, then those things need to be addressed before the construction is done. These are things identified through site plan. That's why we solicit for comments from the region, from the town, from TRCA, from everybody else involved. And Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this stuff, but same with traffic, same with everything. There's no way for us to know how many people are going to own cars or hopefully not own cars, which is the whole point of this, why we're making concessions for parking. So I guess, and I don't have a question there, I guess what I'm just saying is I mean, give us a little bit of credit.
Yeah,
we are
no.
going to go through the thing, but it's all speculation, it's all market driven, right? These aren't going to be built overnight. These are going to be built over the next 10, 20, however long years. Right now the market is terrible, so nothing's getting built. So there, I think that I feel personally when I make this decision that we have the time and that these things are going to be, even though they don't work out on paper, we all know that, you know, if we came out with a secondary plan that was everything can only be maximum 25 stories, every application that comes to us is going to end up at the board. You know, these are things that we can't predict today, but we know, and those things will be worked out over time. I guess I'm just asking you to be patient with this a little bit, because we are going to go through the full public process and hopefully get the answers as best as we can.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying here is I really want to ensure that the public feedback, for example, through the survey, which is why I came today to speak to those things, is clearly a part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
The presentation was a good one last week, but it didn't speak to the survey results. It just sort of mentioned them in passing. There was one sort of slide, I think, that sort of said, here's what it is. On the IMO site, for example, The survey results are sort of embedded within one of 6 reports on the side. I think it's very important, if you're going to go out and ask for public opinion, then you make that public opinion very, very clear in terms of what the results are, and you are guided by it as you have any public discussions, even private discussions going forward. And that's why I'm here today, to try and remind that of, and, you know, exercise my right as part of the consultation.
Noted. Thank you. Oh, see, now I have questions. Councillor Henry.
Thank you. Actually, Mr. Mayor, I pushed my button when you asked, but then you continued on, so I just waited patiently. I just want to ask this of the planning department if I can. Concept 1 is the current existing permissions, correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, it's reflective of our current official plan permissions. That's correct.
Okay. And 150 jobs and people per hectare is not actually reflected in concept 1, is that correct, or it is?
I can't speak to the particulars about the concept. Mr. McCullough's here. He could definitely speak to the particulars around the different concepts and what the jobs and people per.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. McCullough.
Good afternoon. So through the chair to Councillor Henry. So the concepts that were presented, they do exceed the provincial minimums. Is that the question?
No, my question is, concept 1, does it meet the 150 jobs and people per hectare?
This is questions to the delegate, not on the report that we dealt with last week. Just so you know, I will be pulling that report when the cap comes forward.
That's
and we'll
okay.
be having time to ask those questions then. This is questions to the delegate, please.
So you want me to wait and ask them?
If you're going to ask questions about specifics to the plan, like the concepts, yes. But if
Yeah,
you're gonna
it's just that
Mr.
one
Glass's
question.
presentation wasn't on the concepts or on the secondary plan itself. It was more on the public consultation piece.
That's fine. I can wait. Thank you.
Next, Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, thank you, Worship.
And same note.
Huh?
Same note.
Yeah, I know. No, I would never want to insult your intelligence, but you realize that this plan had to be developed through the HAP funding. In order for us to get, it's part of the 7 initiatives that we committed to when we received our $22 million. This had to be done for that so that we can get our next installment for $5 million, right? So it's done, and now we do a public consultation, but this is the process for that. Like, it is what we had to do this as part of our commitment from that money.
Yeah, absolutely.
okay.
I understand that it's part of the HAF funding, Housing Accelerator Fund.
Yeah.
But my point is that we are exceeding the requirements collectively across. We are in essence providing a lot of housing in the future if all of the planned development takes place. So the narrative that we're not meeting the pressures of the other levels of government, I don't think is a fair statement or narrative.
Yeah, I personally would like something to be built, period, but that's not in my control. But just so you know that, you know, this whole plan is just part of what we committed to the federal government under that grant. So that's what we're doing. Thank you.
Seeing nothing else in the speaker's box, thank you for your delegation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Moving on, there are no correspondence items. As said, under the Community Affairs and Planning, we have 8.1.1 Community Affairs and Planning Committee, October 6, 2025. Moved by Councillor Bauer, second by Councillor Lee, that Community Affairs and Planning Committee report dated October 6 be adopted. I would like to separate item 5.1, which is the item dealing with the secondary plan, to be voted on separately, as I have an amendment. So I'll move that. Can I get a seconder, please? Seconded by Councillor Lee. Any questions or comments on the motion to divide? Okay, those in favor of division? If I need that, I'm not sure we need that, but anyway, let's vote anyway. That carries. So on the Community Affairs and Planning report of October 6 on everything but 5.1, any questions, comments, polls? Okay, on that, please vote in favor or opposed. for receipt. I didn't look, but I assume that carried. Okay, on item 5.1, I do have a motion. I wonder if the clerk can put it on the screen, please. And looking for a seconder. Moved by myself, seconded by whoever, that clause 2 of the resolution for item 5.1 in the October 6th CAP report be amended to read as follows: that staff be authorized to schedule consultation meetings to seek input from the public, Indigenous communities, and other key stakeholders on the proposed land use concepts and policy considerations, while also introducing a range of building heights, including options that exceed 35 stories, in order to explore higher densities in alignment with provincial and federal direction. Second by Councilor Tyler Moore, thank you. So just to speak to it very quickly, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because we spent about 45 minutes on this the other day. I think we got a little bit off track during some of the conversations. I think we got a little bit too into some of the specifics. This is not intended to take away in any way from the public consultation, and as I just alluded to with our last delegation, we're going to be talking about not just having one of these. I think some councillors have talked about having them in different wards. This is something that we'll discuss, whether we can have a second or a third one to make sure that we do this properly. All this is doing is just saying, let's just, show the full, show this is where we are, this is some possibilities, this is the, what some of the things council have done, is to give more information, not less. I don't think this takes away at all. Concept 1, Concept 2 will still be part of this as printed in the last agenda, I understand. Yeah, it's not changing any of that, which I understand may have been a concern for some people. This is just saying, don't just tell people this is capped at 35. These are some of the other options that we have available. So I'm not going to talk any more about that. I think we had a very thorough debate on this last week, and I will ask for your support. Thank you. Councilor Tyler Moore, as a seconder.
Yeah, I'll just speak very briefly to it as a seconder. So my concern with wanting this to be passed by this council is so that it gives us the most amount of options moving forward, as per the wording, in order to explore higher densities in alignment with provincial and federal direction. So I understand, maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, to staff, Ms. Brownridge, that there could be some options or some opportunity for us, if this passes, for us to get some grant funding. Is Ms. Brownridge here? If you could just speak to that a little bit. That's my number one concern.
Through the mayor to Councilor Tyler Moore, is that so far away? Yeah, so typically we're finding when it comes to provincial and federal grant applications, we are being asked to refer to our housing targets and actions that we're taking on housing. So yes, the completion of something like this that gave us some updated targets and policies related to the secondary plan would be advantageous to reference as part of grant applications.
Advantageous, okay, thank you. And this is not to supersede any of the rules and regulations that, nor the public input as well. Okay, that's the reason why I'm supporting this. Thank you so much.
Councilor Lee?
Thank you, Chair. Just want to add a very quick comment. I appreciate this amendment. It doesn't eliminate any options previously set. Rather, it adds. I think that was kind of the core issue I had the previous discussion. So this one, yeah, it just opens it up to more possibilities, and then we will address the public and their consultation with more options. And again, with something as serious as this, I think more options is probably better than less. So I appreciate the amended amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Councilor Henry.
Thank you. Yes, I'm okay with this motion as well. And I wanted to know, you mentioned about consultations in different wards. Are we looking at 3 consultations? Or are we looking at one major one here at Town Hall? Do you know?
I don't know, but let's ask Mr. McCullough, and then if I need to add a bullet 3 specifying the number, we can do that. Mr. McCullough, to the question?
Through the mayor to Councillor Henry. So at this time, we were just planning the single in-person open house meeting. We're looking at early November, pending the outcome of today's. That's the current plan, but of course, we would take direction from council if needed and can work it out with our consultant.
And that would be located at what location?
In this room.
Okay, at Town Hall.
Yes.
Okay. I'm okay with that, actually, because it's a central location that's meant for all of council, and we can direct our words here. I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Thank you, Councillor Henry. That was also my question. And I would like to have how there are separate meetings within each ward at the rec centers. So I would like a bulleted item adding that each ward would have a public consultation. I know that adds extra work, but this is important.
That would be 4. I would say we would forego the one here and have them just in the 3 community
That's
centers
fine.
in the 3 wards, if that's just to staff, Mr. McCullough or to Mr. Romanowski. Is that doable? Is that within staff's capacity to have the 3 public meetings?
We'll take council's direction, but we'll have to go back to our consultant. There may be added costs to that. We'd have to look at how our proposal went out and if we had covered off a certain amount of meetings within our proposal, but we could circle back with council if that's the direction and figure
Yeah,
it
not
out.
knowing what that cost would be.
So then I will say if it is at no extra cost, I would like it added to each ward. If there is a cost, then I'm satisfied with having the one major meeting.
Okay. Do we
Thank you.
need that papered, or are we okay with that direction?
So to you, Mr. Mayor, I will just clarify, there will be an added cost for that because currently our proposal, we've just got the single meeting at this stage. As I mentioned in the CAP meeting, there will be additional meetings as we move through the process, but we had never anticipated kind of those ward by ward meetings. It was kind of the singular meeting in this location. So we would have to talk to our consultant and there would be an additional cost.
Okay, so we proceed with the November-ish meeting here. Okay. Anything further? Hearing, seeing none. On the amendment. Thank you. And do we need again on the report as amended? Yes, okay. On the report, item 5.1 as amended, please. Open the vote. And that carries. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to item 8.2, GDC 8.2.1, General Government Committee, October 14, 2025. Moved by Councillor Tyler Moore and seconded by, I need a seconder, please. Councillor Lee. That the General Government Committee report dated October 14, 2025 be adopted. Those in favor? Questions or comments first? No? Okay, vote. Carries. There are no departmental reports. Regional Council reports. It's been pretty quiet at Regional Council. There are no regional. No, there are no Regional Council reports. Business arising from notice of do we still receive information if there's no reports? No. Done. Business arising from notice of motion, advocating for expansion of the Canada-wide early learning and childcare CWELCC program. Councillor Henry and Councillor Crawford. Councillor Henry, please press your button. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just going back to my page here. Thank you. So we're bringing forth this motion with regards to Canada-wide early learning and childcare. And the reason that myself and Regional Councillor Crawford are bringing this forward is we've had a number of concerns from the public with regards to if this program will proceed as it has over the last year. And they want to make sure, the public wants to make sure that the program is in place, that the federal government and the provincial government have come together and once again decided to extend this. And I understand there is a little bit of a conundrum about cost at this time, but from what we've heard from our representatives, both levels of government are trying to work through that and come to an agreement. So this motion is basically saying that we as a council understand the need for this type of childcare and that we stand behind our residents and saying that we'd like to see it continue and support it here in Ajax. And we're hoping for support on that. Thank you.
Okay, Council Lee?
I just want to add on, especially if the province is going to force everyone back to work, even though we seem to have navigated a system that works from home. But if we're going to force people back to work, then we absolutely need affordable daycare for those people. Thank you, Chair.
That carries. Next item, provincial decision on automatic speed enforcement, moved by Councillor Lee, second by Councillor Tyler Moore. Councillor Lee?
Thank you, Chair. So obviously, we've been following this for the past few months. The Premier has made very emphatic statements saying that he will not support automatic speed enforcement. This motion just serves to reinforce all the other motions going across from every other municipality. I believe OBCM has one coming out that just says in one voice that no, ASE does work in reducing speeds. ASE is a safety tool, and we think as one of the early adopters with ASE, this municipality, that we should be keeping it because it works, it slows people down, and hopefully the Premier will reconsider once he hears the hopefully unanimous voices from all the municipalities in Ontario. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Tyler Moore?
I want to thank the mayors, the leadership you showed on this. You were, I think, one of the first ones that adopted it as council, as my colleague just said, and also when it was within the, a media scrum kind of canceled, and you stepped up and said, well, no, they actually do work. But, to the residents out there that are listening to this, it was never a cash grab. It was always about safety, and it worked. It still works. Now, there might have been adjustments that could be made, but, the main thing I want everyone to know is that it never cost us anything to do it. It was actually, it didn't cost us anything. I don't think we made any money at the town level. That's another story altogether. And apparently now we're going to be getting other types of traffic calming, but it's kind of too bad because I think with an adjustment, this could have worked. But anyways, I support this motion, and as my council colleague said, who knows? Maybe there'll be something changed, but those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Councillor Henry?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I support this motion. There's that old saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and this is working. And I myself wrote a letter to Minister Sakaria regarding this and had a brief interaction with him at AMO. I think that, we could put some safety markers in place or some things that could be brought forward, but it doesn't mean we have to lose the use of ASE machines. So happy to support.
Councillor Crawford?
Yeah, just to say that it was a big discussion at AMO a couple weeks ago that was pretty fresh at that point, and I think just about every single municipality has come out saying, yes, this works, so stay out of this, right? This is a good thing. So there's lots of support around the province for it. I don't know where this is going to go. He seems pretty adamant about getting rid of it, but we'll just keep talking. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to make a comment, but there's nobody else in the speaking box. I don't want my comments to trigger more speakers. Okay. I was at Big City Mayors last week in Thunder Bay, and this was one of the items we discussed on Friday, and a motion was brought forward on behalf of Big City Mayors, and obviously passed, but I think the baby's out. I don't think the government's listening. I think this is done deal, and this will end up promptly in the garbage, but I'm happy to do it and send it and hope for the best. This is it. He's just waiting for Ajax. My letter didn't matter. This is the one. Please open the vote. Yeah, that's it. What? That carries. Exercise and futility, but there we go. Next business arises from notice motion, mental health and addictions, urgent care and emergency department, moved by Council Lee and myself. Council Lee?
Thank you, Chair. This came from Regional Council where Mayor Carter, told Regional Council that he was in, I think, the last leg of negotiations with the province and Lake Ridge to develop 24/7 mental health and addictions urgent care and emergency department, which is absolutely needed in Durham region. He did mention afterwards that any kind of support available from the other lower tier municipalities would be helpful, and so this is just that. We are seeing more than ever this mental health crisis within, this country and the world really, and we need something dedicated to help that. Right now, the amount of time and resources it's taking away from our emergency rooms for these type of issues is draining our system and really costing time of other emergency-related health issues. So hopefully with a dedicated one, we can kind of streamline things and make things better for the region as a whole. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and not seeing anyone else, I'll speak as a seconder. During Durham Day at the region, we attended Queen's Park, and Mayor Carter and I sat down with I think he's a parliamentary assistant, I can't say his last name, Vijay, about this, and he seemed sympathetic. We spoke to him about, Mayor Carter and I also sit on the Police Service Board, and spoke to him also about the fact that 30% of all Durham Regional Police calls for service are not police-related matters. They're matters relating to homeless, mental health, and addiction, and the police they can deal with it, but they aren't specially trained to deal with this properly and give the services that these people need at this time of crisis, where having this set up at Lakeridge Health Oshawa, this very specific, what are we calling it? Just it's not even a room, it's just a clinic or whatever it is sort of the way to get these people the immediate help that they need. I know we've as a group at the region and at the town supported the empath model through Ontario Shores and some others. Unfortunately, they've never made the provincial budget yet, but this special ask, I'm hoping does. And if we can do this, I think we can not only address the issue we're having, but also free up those other resources, being Durham Regional Police, to be doing the things that they really are intended to do. So ask for your support. Thank you. Please open the vote. That carries. Final notice of motion, reviewing Ajax's rented temperature dwelling bylaw. Councillor Bauer, Councillor Dies. Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Yes, this is just a request to direct staff to do some research for us because we need that direction to be given. This comes, we can all acknowledge that the world keeps getting hotter. Our summers keep getting hotter, and there are some residents in our town who have access to air conditioning, but only at certain times of the year. So I thought it would be an easier request when this first came up after phone calls with residents in some of our rented apartments a few years back now, but it seems to be we need some research and work done by town staff. So this motion is just to direct staff to do that work for us, and I ask for your support, please.
Councillor Dies, did you want to speak as a seconder? Please go ahead.
Please. Thank you. And just very quickly, I know this isn't an easy fix or a quick fix, but it is becoming a problem that Councillor Bauer and I hear all the time when we go visit our seniors. We have two seniors facilities that are built in the 80s, and neither of them have air conditioning. And that's become a real issue for seniors. And there's just no way of escaping it. So I think it's really important that we start somewhere because it's only going to get worse as the buildings are getting older. Maybe they'll need replacing at some point, but until then, we need to think of what we can do to alleviate the problem. So thank you.
Okay, seeing nobody else on the speakers list, please open the vote. And that carries. That completes our notices of motion. Moving on to bylaws. We have 6, I believe. 7. Moved by Councillor Dye, second by Councillor Henry, that bylaws 75-2025 to 81-2025 be approved. Any questions on any of the bylaws? Hearing, seeing none, please open the vote. Those bylaws are approved. Is there any notice of motion? No notice of motion. Any new business or announcements? Councillor Henry, you pressed your button. Councillor Tyler Moore, and you did not.
I did, thank
There you
you. Mr. Mayor, so tomorrow evening, from 6 to 8 p.m., we have the Ajax Council Pumpkin Giveaway. That will be at Audley Recreation Center. And from 6 to 7 p.m. is the time, I want to repeat that, 6 to 7 p.m. is the time for a sensory-friendly hour. Lights will be adjusted accordingly. Music will be adjusted accordingly. We have some nice giveaways at that time. We have a full room in which little ones can walk around and go table to table trick-or-treating. And we're hoping to see all there that wish to participate. Looking forward to it, and I believe there's some surprises there as well. Thank you, and I actually would like to give a shout out to our council assistant, Nimra, who's worked so hard to help make this come to fruition. And I know she's off today, and hopefully she's listening to this, so big thank you, Nimra.
I doubt it, but sure. Councillor Tyler Moore.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to invite everyone in Ward 1 to join Regional Council Marilyn Crawford and myself, Councillor Rob Tyler Moore, as we discuss important Ward 1 community issues at our upcoming ward meeting, which is on Tuesday, October 28, 2025, at 6:30 p.m. till 8 p.m.-ish at McLean Community Center. We look forward to hearing your thoughts and connecting with residents, and bring a friend. Thank you.
Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mayor Collier, and Regional Councillor Dyes and I invite you all to attend our Ward 3 meeting, which is on Monday, October 27th, from 7 to 8 p.m. in the River Plate Room. We do have a guest speaker. Deputy CAO Nicole Cooper is coming to talk about strong mayor powers. So please come out and bring a friend. Thank you.
Bring two friends. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. To all those celebrating Diwali today, Council obviously wishes you a happy Diwali. Please ensure we are following the fireworks bylaw if anyone is setting off fireworks today. And today's my son's birthday. Yeah, so happy birthday, Finnegan Lee. A lot of the decisions I make on council is no surprise, is really for the future of my son, to ensure that he inherits something better than what I got. So yeah, happy birthday, Finn.
Oh my God. All right, that concludes new business and announcements. Moving on to confirming bylaw, moved by Councillor Tyler Moore and second by Councillor Henry. That bylaw 82-2025 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ajax at its regular meeting held on October 20th, 2025 be approved. Questions? Please vote. And finally, moved by Councillor Tyler Moore and second by Councillor Crawford, that October 20th, 2025 meeting of the Council of the Town of Ajax be adjourned. Guessing 6-1. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.